All right, so welcome to our deep dive, all about talking about movies.
Yeah.
We're going to look at some source material, some tips, some phrases, some things to really just have some more engaging and interesting conversations about movies.
Absolutely. And not just like simple things, but like really get into some deeper conversations about film.
So where do these conversations even begin? Yeah, well, I see in the source material some basic questions like, have you seen any good movies lately?
Right.
What genre do you prefer? You know, like
Right.
easy.
Yeah, great jumping off points. But maybe instead of just naming genres, think about why you like a certain genre. You know?
Yeah, like I like action movies because they're really exciting. You know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like if someone says, oh, what's your favorite genre? Instead of just saying action, you could say, well, I love action movies because I love the visual spectacle and you know, that feeling of adrenaline, like a roller coaster.
Right.
But you're just sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like adding a why to the what.
Exactly.
Like I might say, I love historical dramas because I'm transported to another time.
Right.
And I'm learning about history, but through film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's actually unpack some of these genres. Romantic comedies.
Oh, okay.
The source material says that they're sweet, but sometimes too predictable.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's the struggle, right, with romantic comedies.
Yeah.
That sometimes.
Yeah, they can be very, very
Right, but sometimes.
But sometimes
That's what you want, you know?
right. You want that comfort.
Yeah.
And that predictability.
It's just
You know, it's like comfort food.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you want something that's a little bit more.
Yeah, surprising.
Yeah, surprising. It kind of plays with those tropes and expectations. So speaking of expectations, another genre.
Yeah.
Sci-fi.
Okay. Yeah.
The source material says that they're fascinating because they explore futuristic ideas, you know?
I think it's more than just. It's not always just spaceships and lasers, but it's
Right.
more of a way to reflect on the human condition.
Right.
And I think some movies like Blade Runner or Arrival
Right.
really do that well, where
Yeah.
it's like, what does it mean to be human? Yeah,
Right.
what is artificial intelligence? Like really, big questions.
Okay, so that's great for sci-fi.
Yeah.
But let's move to something that's a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
The plot.
Okay.
I always struggle to describe a movie without spoiling it for somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And the source material
For sure.
recommends keeping it very simple.
Yeah.
Like it's about a detective solving a case.
Right.
But how do you make that a little bit more captivating?
Yeah, you have to make it, paint a picture with your words. So instead of just saying it's a detective who solves a case, you could say something like, this detective is in a world shrouded in mystery and he's trying to find a cunning killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there are twists and turns you'll be guessing until the very end.
Okay, so it's like you're setting a scene
Yes.
more than just
Yeah, set the stage.
stating the obvious.
Absolutely.
So speaking of captivating characters,
Okay.
the source material says, relatable characters with personality traits.
Right. And I think this is where the concept of archetypes comes in.
Okay.
So you have the hero, the villain, the wise mentor,
Right.
the comic relief.
Yeah.
So even if you haven't seen a movie, you kind of have a sense of, okay, I know what those characters are going to
You're gonna do.
or
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah. And what's interesting is how movies kind of subvert that.
Yeah.
And flip those on their head.
Right.
Or use them in new ways.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that kind of adds another layer
Yes.
to character analysis. It's like we're peeling an onion.
Yeah.
There's more there than meets the eye.
For sure.
Now, speaking of revealing things,
Okay.
sharing opinions.
Yeah. Oh, this is my favorite part.
Yeah, right.
I love to share opinions.
Yeah, this is the heart and soul
Yeah.
of a great movie discussion.
Absolutely.
And the source material here suggests using a variety of vocabulary.
Yes.
Like mind-blowing, disappointing,
Yeah.
even just okay,
It's okay to not love every film.
Yeah.
Not
everything's...
And that's where the art of disagreeing comes in. Like, you might say something like, you know what, it wasn't my favorite, but I can see why other people might enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's about being respectful and understanding different perspectives.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. So we've covered a lot here.
Yeah.
From the basics of starting a conversation to genres to even character archetypes.
Yeah.
this is a great
it's a great start
to a deep dive.
Absolutely.
Into talking about movies.
And we keep going with this deep dive. And now we're going to look at some specific scenarios you might come across when you're talking about movies.
Yeah.
So one of them is comparing movies.
Right, yeah.
Which, comes up all the time.
Yeah.
When you're a film buff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and the source material talks about using phrases like, this film is better because...
Yeah.
but
sometimes I feel like that's a bit too basic.
Yeah, I think you really have to kind of go deeper,
Yeah.
So instead of just saying, "Oh, I like The Dark Knight better than Batman Begins because it's more intense."
Yeah. Right.
You could say, "Well, The Dark Knight introduces a much more formidable antagonist in the Joker." Right.
Who really kind of pushes Batman to his limits.
Right.
And it really makes him confront his own morals.
Yeah.
And the things that he believes in.
So it's like you're getting to the why of the comparison.
Yeah, like really dissecting those movies.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Now, speaking of dissecting movie reviews.
Oh, yeah.
It's very tempting to just say,
for sure,
it got great reviews.
Right.
The critics hated it.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 98%.
But the source material here says, try to add specific details.
Yeah, give
different context.
Cool words.
Yeah, so instead of just saying, "Oh, this movie got great reviews," you could say something like, "This movie got great reviews because the acting was phenomenal, the cinematography was stunning, and the score was beautiful."
Right.
So you're really kind of painting that picture.
It's like those are the details that make the review come to life.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes we really like a movie, even if the critics hated it.
Absolutely. It's all subjective at the end of the day.
Right.
And
that brings me to another section of the source material.
Okay.
Which is, seeking out movies that align with your preferences.
Yeah, I love movies that have strong female leads.
Right. Or I prefer movies that are thought-provoking.
Absolutely. Finding those things that you're really looking for in a film.
Right. So it's like you're being intentional about what you're watching.
Yes, very much so.
Rather than...
It's like building your own film festival.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of intentionality.
Okay.
Recommending movies to people.
Oh, yeah.
This is always, a little bit tricky because you don't want to recommend a movie that they're going to hate.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to be responsible.
Right. So the source material here is saying, tailor it to their taste.
Yes.
So instead of just saying, "Oh, you should watch this movie," you might say, "If you like these types of movies, then you'll like this movie."
Yeah. Or how much you love, mind-bending thrillers,
Right.
Well, you should check out Parasite.
Right.
Something like that.
So you're giving
you're framing it
some reasoning
in a way that makes sense.
I remember when a friend recommended Cinema Paradiso to me, and I was a little hesitant at first.
Yeah.
But they were just so passionate about this movie, and it's a heartwarming story about the love of cinema.
It's a beautiful film,
and I ended up loving it. So it's like a recommendation can really
absolutely
have
affect you into your life.
Huge impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, speaking of impact,
classic
movies.
Oh, yeah.
The source material mentions Casablanca, The Godfather.
These are movies that have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
They're classics for a reason.
Yes.
And they still resonate with audiences today.
Okay, so if you could recommend one classic movie.
That's a tough one.
To our listener.
Yeah, there's so many, but I'll have to go with 12 Angry Men.
Okay.
Have you seen this film?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
You have to watch it.
Okay, why?
It's a black and white film from 1957.
Okay.
It takes place in one room, a jury room.
Okay.
And it's basically about these 12 jurors.
Okay.
Who are deliberating the fate of this young man.
Oh, okay.
Who's accused of murder. Okay.
And as they're talking, all these prejudices and biases come out.
Oh, okay.
And it's so relevant even today.
Wow. Okay, cool.
You have to. You have to.
So even though it's an old film,
Yeah.
it's still very
Absolutely.
timeless.
It's timeless.
Okay.
It really is.
I'm adding that to my list.
You'd have to.
Okay.
It's phenomenal.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Now, the source material also mentions international cinema.
Yes.
And I find this really interesting because
I love it.
it's like, we get a different perspective.
It's different cultures, different cinematic.
Yeah, and it says here, watching foreign films is like traveling without a passport.
Absolutely.
So it's like we're expanding our horizons.
Yes, very much so.
Through film.
For sure.
Okay, so now, in addition to different cultures, we can also talk about different aspects of filmmaking, like soundtracks and
visual effects.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
these are all
huge parts of filmmaking.
Right. So how would you describe the impact of a really good soundtrack?
Well, imagine you're watching a scene.
Okay.
And the tension is building and building.
Yeah.
And then the music swells.
Yeah.
And you get that,
right?
Those strings come in.
So it's like the music's really adding to it's the drama.
Yeah, think about Star Wars.
Right.
Think about The Godfather. Like that music is so iconic.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be the same movie without it.
It's like an extension of
it's an extension
storytelling. Absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of captivating, special effects have really kind of
revolutionized.
Changed the game.
Cinema.
Yeah. I mean, Avatar,
Inception.
Mm-hmm. Oh, mind-blowing.
The things that you can do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like filmmakers can really do anything.
Anything. Yeah, bring anything to life.
Core.
Yeah.
So now adaptations.
Okay.
That's always a
this is
tricky one.
This is a tough one because people are very passionate about their favorite books or plays.
Right.
So when it gets adapted to the screen.
Right. And there's always the question of how faithful are they going to be?
Right. Exactly. How faithful are they? And do you change things? And people have very strong opinions about that.
Yeah.
But I think.
So it's like, it always makes for good conversation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of good conversation.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have covered a lot.
From genres to reviews, international cinema.
Yeah, soundtrack.
I've
learned a lot.
A whirlwind
about movies.
The film industry.
Yeah, but before we sign off, I do want to talk about a few other things.
Right.
Like animated films, horror movies.
Oh, yeah. Those are...
And even like movie endings.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with animated films.
Okay.
They're often seen as just for kids.
Right.
Yeah, but
the best ones,
the good ones,
have something for everybody.
Yeah, like Pixar movies.
Yeah, Pixar's a great example.
Right.
Yeah.
Now horror movies.
Yeah.
This is a genre.
Yeah.
That's all about
scaring us,
keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, those primal fears, the things that go bump in the night.
Right.
Yeah.
And then movie endings.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they're satisfying.
Yeah, sometimes they're ambiguous.
Sometimes they leave you with questions.
Right, and that's what makes them, stay with you. Right. And kind of...
They make you think.
Make you think about it afterward.
Now, speaking of things that make you think...
Okay.
Franchises.
Oh, yeah.
These
modern
huge
Star Wars,
cinematic universes.
Absolutely. The movies that just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
And I think they're so fascinating because they create this world that you can just get lost in.
Right.
And just keep exploring.
So before we get lost in those worlds, let's bring it back and recap what we've talked about.
Yeah.
We looked at comparing movies.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We looked at reviews.
Yeah, personal preferences, international cinema.
We looked at
soundtracks, visual effects.
Different aspects of filmmaking.
Yeah.
This is a great continuation.
Yeah, it's been our
deep dive.
Absolutely.
So
are you ready for the
I think so.
Apple Act?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're back. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into talking about movies.
Final act.
Yeah, we've covered so much ground already.
I've covered a lot, yeah.
From genres and characters and reviews and international cinema.
Soundtracks, adaptations.
All sorts of things, yeah.
It's been a whirlwind.
But before we we wrap up completely,
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to something we mentioned earlier about what makes a movie truly memorable.
Right.
What are those things that make a movie stand out?
Yeah, what are those intangible qualities that make a film, stick with you, the ones you remember years later?
So for me, I think it's a combination of, a great story,
right,
characters that I can really relate to, of a certain visual style that really makes it unique, but most importantly, it's that emotional impact.
Right.
If a movie can make me laugh or cry or just really think, think about the world.
It resonates with you,
Yeah, then I'm more likely to remember it.
Absolutely. Those films that connect with us on a human level and really kind of tap into our shared experiences, I think those are the ones that we remember.
And it's almost like those movies become a part of us.
Yeah, very much so.
And then we can kind of use those movies to connect with other people.
Right. It's like a shared language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we come to a close on our deep dive here, I want to leave you with this final question.
Okay.
What makes a movie memorable for you?
Yeah.
Is it the cinematography? Is it the plot twists? Is it the performances?
Yeah, think about those films that have really had an impact on you.
Yeah.
And what makes them stand out? And how can you share those discoveries with other people and keep the conversation going?
Yeah, so we've given you the tools to break down genres and characters and express your opinions.
I think you're ready now to go out and have those.
Go out there and have those.
Deeper, more insightful conversations about film.
Yeah, happy watching, everyone.